Hey there, adventurers. DM Doctor here, your trusty guide to all things Dungeons & Dragons. Today we're diving into a topic that's bound to resonate with many of you, how one simple word can derail your entire session. And that word is miss. Sounds harmless, right? But trust me, it can cause some serious damage to your party's morale and engagement. So stick around and we'll explore how to turn those misses into epic moments of storytelling. So let's dive deeper and understand why this word can be so problematic, just to start things off. So picture this, you're in the heat of battle, the rogue is lining up a perfect shot, the barbarian is ready to bring down their mighty axe, the wizard's chanting a spell, then miss, 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 over and over again. What does this do to the players? It can be incredibly discouraging and disengaging. When players hear miss too often, it can feel like their characters are ineffective or even useless. This isn't just about bad luck with the dice, it's about how these misses are framed and communicated. Every time a character misses, it chips away at their perceived competence, and it can even alter how players see their carefully crafted characters. So why is miss such a big deal? Here are two key reasons. One, it's just frustration. Hearing constant misses can lead to player frustration. It feels like they're not contributing to the game, which can be disheartening. And two, it's disengagement. When the player feels their characters aren't effective, they can disengage from the game. They might stop trying as hard, stop role-playing, or even check out completely. But here's the good news. We can turn this around. By shifting our perspective and reframing how we narrate those misses, we can keep players engaged and excited, even when the dice don't cooperate. It's all about maintaining the integrity of the character and the story. So in this next segment, we're going to break down exactly how to do this, and we'll explore practical tips and examples on how to narrate combat scenes in a way that makes every roll, hit, or miss an epic part of the story. Now that we understand the problem with the word miss and how it can frustrate and disengage players, let's talk about how we can shift our perspective and turn this around. Instead of focusing on the miss, let's make every action in combat feel meaningful and dynamic. Here's the big idea. Instead of saying you miss, we narrate the enemy's reactions. This small shift can make a huge difference. Let's dive into some practical examples though. Imagine your barbarian swings their great axe, rolls a 10, and misses. Normally you'd say you miss. Simple but uninspiring. Instead, let's just reframe that. Now let's say the same roll happens, but this time you narrate as, you swing your great axe, but the cultist quickly steps to the side. He deflects your blow with his scimitar, and your axe smashes into the floorboards, splintering wood everywhere. Suddenly, this action feels alive and cinematic, even though the roll didn't hit. Let's look at another example too. The ranger fires an arrow, rolls a 9, and misses. Instead of just saying you miss, try something like, you fire an arrow from across the room, the arrow arcs expertly through the air, but the cultist ducks at the last moment, the arrow whizzing past his ear. He looks back at you with a mix of shock and relief. Now this miss tells a story and keeps the tension high. This approach works for enemy actions too. When an enemy misses, it shouldn't just be about bad luck. Make it about the player's skill. For instance, the cultist swings the barbarian's head, but the barbarian catches the attacker's wrist and roars in his face. This highlights the character's competence and keeps them engaged. By making misses a part of the narrative, you keep the game exciting and your players motivated. It also reinforces their character's abilities and makes every combat encounter feel like a thrilling story, not just a series of dice rolls. Now here are some practical tips to help you implement this technique consistently and keep your combat scenes fresh and engaging. First up is the obvious one, is preparation. Before your game session, spend a few minutes brainstorming descriptive phrases for misses. Jot down a list of different ways enemies can react to your attacks. Think of how they might dodge, block, or counteract. This prep work will give you a mental library to draw from during the game itself. Here's some examples to get you started though. Dodge, the cultist nimbly dodges to the side as your sword swings past. Parry, the enemy raises their shield just in time to deflect your blow. Or deflect, the sorcerer waves their staff, causing your arrow to veer off course. Or counter, the goblin ducks under your punch and tries to trip you with a swift kick. Or duck, the orc ducks, and your attack swishes through the air right above its head. Or even sidestep, the knight sidesteps your spear, their armor clinking with the movement. Next, create something like flashcards to help with these descriptions. You can shuffle through them quickly during combat to keep your narrations varied and spontaneous. This will help you avoid repetition and keeps every encounter unique. Another tip is to pay attention to your player characters and their fighting styles, and tailor your descriptions to match their abilities and personalities. If your barbarian is known for brute strength, describe enemies staggering under the force of their swings, even if they miss. And if your rogue is agile, focus on the near misses that emphasize their dexterity. Also, don't forget the environment. Use the setting to enhance your descriptions. Something like your arrow thuds into a tree as the bandit ducks behind it, or your sword glances off the stone as the guard sidesteps your strike. This not only makes misses more interesting, but it also immerses players in the world that you've already built. And finally, practice makes perfect. The more you use this technique, the more natural it will become for you. Encourage your players to do the same as well. When they describe their actions and their near misses creatively, it enriches the entire game experience. And by implementing these tips, you'll transform how misses are perceived in your games, and they'll no longer be frustrating failures, but integral parts of an epic, ongoing story. So, how do we ensure our players stay excited and invested, even when the dice rolls aren't in their favor? One of the best ways to keep players engaged is to turn every moment into a narrative opportunity. When you reframe misses as enemy reactions, you're not just avoiding a negative, but you're creating a positive, immersive experience. So let's explore some strategies to keep that engagement high. First, always keep the story moving. Even when a player misses, the story shouldn't stall. Describe how the environment changes, and how enemies react, and what new opportunities arise from each action. For example, your arrow misses but hits a lantern, causing it to swing wildly and cast an eerie shadow across the room. Now there's an element in the scene that can affect everyone. Let's break down these techniques. Something like dynamic descriptions. You can use vivid, action-oriented language to describe misses. This keeps the energy high and keeps players on their toes. Every swing, shot, and spell should feel like it has impact, even if it doesn't hit. And secondly, character abilities. You want to highlight the skills and the traits of the characters even during misses. This reinforces their competence and makes players feel their characters are always contributing no matter what. For example, the wizard's spell fizzles, but the arcane energy crackles around their fingers, hinting at their untapped power. And thirdly, player feedback. Engage with your players. Ask them how they feel about their new descriptions and what kind of narrative excites them. This opens the dialogue and helps you tailor your approach to suit the group and keeps everyone invested. Remember, the goal is to make players feel like a hero, regardless of what their dice rolls are. Celebrate their creativity and encourage them to describe their actions and near misses in ways that fit their characters. This collaborative storytelling keeps everyone engaged and makes the game more enjoyable. Encouraging players to take an active role in narrating their actions not only boosts engagement, but fosters deeper connection in their characters and their story. This shared responsibility for the narrative creates a richer, more immersive experience for everyone at the table. Now let's talk about the backbone of any successful campaign, and that's just open communication. As the dungeon master, it's crucial to foster an environment where players feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and feedback. This not only helps you improve your game, but also ensures that everyone's having fun. First, you want to establish regular check-ins. After every session, take a few minutes to ask your players what they enjoyed and what they think can be improved upon. Encourage honesty and be open to constructive criticism. For example, you could say something like, "Hey everyone, that was a great session. I'd love to hear what you thought about the combat scenes. Was there anything you particularly liked or anything that could be better?" This approach shows your players that you value their input and are committed to making the game more enjoyable for everyone. Another important aspect is addressing issues that arise. If a player seems frustrated or disengaged, don't just ignore it. Have a private conversation to understand their concerns and work together to find a solution. For instance, you might say, "I've noticed you seemed a bit frustrated during last combat. Is there something specific that's bothering you? Let's see how we can make it better." Open communication also extends to setting expectations. I know you've heard this a billion times, but before starting any campaign, have a session 0 to discuss the tone, the themes, and the boundaries of your game. This ensures that everyone's on the same page and helps prevent misunderstandings later on. For example, you could say, "Let's talk about what kind of story we want to tell. We're looking for a lighthearted adventure, a dark and gritty tale, or something in between. Also, are there any topics we should avoid to make sure everyone's comfortable?" By fostering open communication, you create a supportive and collaborative environment where players feel heard and valued. I'd love to hear how it goes, so feel free to share your experiences in the comments below. Remember, being a great DM is all about continuous learning and improvement. By applying these techniques, you'll create a more immersive and enjoyable experience for your players. Thanks for joining me on this adventure, and until next time, keep those dice rolling and tell amazing stories.